I want to share a very interesting idea. This is Parshas Parah this week, and we read about the laws of the red heifer. Now, the Rambam brings, it's mentioned in the Mishnah also, but the Rambam is very, very eloquent in how he describes this, that during the time of the Second Temple, there was a heretical sect, very well known, the Tzedukkim, excuse me, different ways of pronouncing the name, the Sadducees, and that's how they're known in English and based in the Greek. So the Sadducees laws of the red heifers, that you have to have a person who's tahor, who's ritually pure, come and gather the ashes and sprinkle, and then the ones that are impure and the ones and so forth, there's all different. And the one who it's sprinkled on becomes pure. The one who also does the sprinkling doesn't become impure. It's a mistake people make. The one doing the sprinkling does not become impure. But it's a very, it seems to most people to be a contradiction. Why, it purifies the impure and defiles the pure, but it's really not so, because we can understand many different ideas in that. But in any event, the Rambam mentions this very interesting halacha, the historical fact. What happened in the times of the Second Temple was that the Sadducees said the laws of purity include that if somebody goes to the mikveh, the purification process is not completed until they have Har of Shemesh, until the sun goes down. Some say really the halacha l'maisa is until Tzeis HaKochavim, until when the stars come out, until it's actually night. So, for example, the Kohanim, if they go to the mikveh, they can't eat truma right away. They have to wait. It's the first Mishnah in Brach. It's very well known. Now, the question is here. So if it says v'hez hafish tahor, the pure person is to come and gather the ashes to sprinkle, how pure does he have to be? So the Sadducees said he has to be pure in the strictest way. Wait until nighttime, meaning he has to go to mikveh and then wait till nighttime. Of course, they're probably disagreeing about the laws of the mikveh, but they said they had to wait until nighttime to be pure. So Bezdin in the Second Temple times wanted they want to get rid of these ideas. The Rambam says, the people that they're wanton sinners, and instead of following the ancient traditions which we received from God, that would pass from Moses throughout all the generations, instead of that, they made up their own religion. They claim to be sola scriptura, but like something that I describe quite often, there's no such thing as sola scriptura. Everybody interprets the Bible in some way. There's no way to escape interpretations of Scripture. Every translation is essentially interpretation. It's not So the Rambam is really pointing out the hypocrisy of the Sadducees there, by saying that they're teaching based on their own interpretations as opposed to teaching based on traditions. They're not just going by what the Bible says, because there's no way to really just know what the Bible says. You have to either interpret it or have a tradition of what it means. So for that reason, the Rambam notes, a historical note, that what happened in the times of the Second Temple was that they would go out of their way, that the Kohen who would go and sprinkle the ashes, not only that they would put him in the mikveh, so he would be pure, but before they put him in the mikveh, let's say he was already pure, they would go out of their way to make sure he was tamei, by that he should touch a sheretz, a dead animal that's like a mouse or something like that, or that he should be touched by this and defiled by touching this dead animal. The Shemona Shratzim is 8 different whatever, a lizard, something like that, that touching the dead carcass would render a person tameh, would render a person what we call ritually impure, and then therefore this person would now be tameh, and then they put him in the mikveh, so he would be at full yom. He wouldn't have the full purity of nighttime. He would have only the purity of having gone to mikveh, which is kind of a limbo state. Meaning, and just to show that the tradition that we received from Moses was like that, was that would be good enough. You don't have to be strict and wait till nighttime. You can do it just by going to the mikveh, and that's enough tahara that be able to gather the ashes of the Parah of the red heifer. That's in Numbers 19. So it shows also that even the stringencies of heretics should not be abided by. You shouldn't go and say, well, I don't want to pick on anyone. I've heard of places, and there are halachic considerations that perhaps to count a woman to a minyan something, or to have a whole minyan just of women, we don't generally paskin like that, but there are halachic roots for that. But then there are certain groups that they're so bent on having this this idea of egalitarianism to the point where it's not that they say, all right, we'll have 9 men and 1 woman, or even you want to have 6 men and 4 women, or you have 10 women. They want to go out of their way that they won't read the Torah, or they won't do any davar shebekadusha until they have 10 men and 10 women. You need 20 people for the minyan. Maybe in a big city it's easy to do. You have small communities which struggle just to have 10. That's of course in the Orthodox rules we only count men. Maybe we'll count a boy under bar mitzvah to be a tenth in certain places. And really, there's what the Rishonim you could rely on. It's just the same. You could count a woman, but L'maisa, most places don't do that. But to go and be machmir to the point which has no source, that you need 10 men and 10 women, you need 20 people to have a minyan, and there has to be 10 men and 10 women, or else you don't have a minyan. There's no such thing like that. And so their preoccupation, which I can understand, I'm not belittling it, but that preoccupation with egalitarianism went to a point where they invented a chumrah that has no source. And so this would be something that I don't know how we would. All right, so bedavka we don't, whatever. It's not bedavka. It's just we follow halach. We don't pay attention to such nourished things. It's definitely a silly thing. I understand where it comes from, and I even have respect for it, even though I disagree. But it's a narishkeit, But anyway, but here, so I guess that's the closest thing I could think of these days. Maybe there are other examples like this. But so in the time of the Second Temple, they went out of their way to demonstrate how they were separated from these heretical Jewish groups like the Sadducees, that even something that there was nothing wrong, meaning there's nothing wrong to wait to have Harav Shemesh and to be machmir like that. But what's the motivation? Meaning this is the same thing. Hashkafically, you have to understand. Even you want to make arguments in halacha. You need a mechitza. You don't need a mechitza. It's not in Shulchan Aruch. This and that. And then people, they wonder why the Orthodox is so bent on the mechitza when it's in the Shulchan Aruch. It's not in the Shulchan Aruch. But first of all, they're late. Definitely understand. And they know it's not in Shulchan Aruch. But they have their reasons why they insisted on it. Whether it's a minig, whether it's a din, it's not really nafkamina. The point is, well, who were the ones who were starting to get rid of the mechitzas? Why? What was their purpose in doing so? And so, in order to, the same thing, giving women aliyahs. The Gemara says a woman could have an aliyah, just we don't do it because of covenant tzibur. And so essentially, we could try to say there are other things that the tzibur could be moichel in the covered. To say that because of covered tzibur, the Baal Tefillah for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur has to have a beard and has to be over a certain age and be married with children. But if the tzibur is moichel, there's no halacha that he can't. So the same thing it seems with in Yonim of covered tzibur. It's the tzibur could be moichel in their covered. However, why do the Orthodox insist on not giving women aliyahs? Even many of they say that Rav Soloveitchik once said, if the women are writing the checks, the women are making the money, the tzibur could be moichel in their covered, because it's covered at tzibur to give a woman aliyah, because the choshev of women, the society has changed. Lamais, they didn't do it. Other places they did. In Iraq, in the time of the Ben Ish Chai, over 100 years ago, when Parshas came, she wanted to have to learn from her grandfather Sefer Torah. She was visiting from India, a very rich woman, very successful, wealthy, woman. Parshas Flora Sassoon, and they let her learn from the Sefer Torah. I don't know what the situation was. It was in front of men or not. That's that's a different question. But they didn't stop her from doing it. I don't know if the Ben Ish Chai was asked about it, but the Maisa. So why be different now? Well, because in Baghdad there was no major thread of reform. Meaning, our issue with reform is not in their practice, but rather in their belief that they don't believe in the Yud Gimel Likrei Emunah. They don't believe in the basic dogmas of Judaism. Because plenty of Orthodox shuls, people drive to shul, they violate halacha. But that's what's done most out of town places. That's what's just normal mainstream thing. It's wrong. It doesn't make it right. But the thing is that's there's reasons for kiruv, a lot of cheshbonos why the Rabbanim turn a blind eye, even though there's shilas. Can you count such a person in minyan? The different chilukei deis as to what yes or no. So anyway, so the point I want to say with the as far as this with the Rambam here, we see here that they don't even follow. There we're talking about kulas, so that's a different story. But even though halachically it might be justified to be mekel, there's people ask me, why the Orthodox insist on this. So this is demonstrating why, because the danger of heresy of the Reform movement, and certain strands within the conservative movement also have certain heretical issues with them. Some do and some don't. So because of this worry, it's not just politics, but it's a genuine worry against heresy. So we see here that the Chazal, Bezdin in time of Vayesheni, the high court that's in Hedron in the time of the Second Temple, went out of their way to be lenient and to go out of their way to defile the priest who's bringing the ashes of the red heifer, and then put him in a mikveh so he should be on a lower level of purity, just for the sake of showing that the Sadducees, who were heretics, were wrong. So that's a very powerful message. And I think there's a lot of musar that you can learn out of that. All right, people are upset at me that I took a certain stance about a certain issue that took place recently in Florida, and the stance I took about it, the answer that I have for that, vis-a-vis this, is, first of all, when the Second Temple we're talking about Jews and Jews, not talking about Jews and Gentiles. They didn't have any time in the Second Temple when they were the emperors were real idolaters and real horrible people. Still, our sages said, and who were persecuted by them. Rabbi Chanina and Iskana Kahanim said, "Having mispal b'shalom shel malchus, you have to pray for the peace of the government." The same thing. We're living under We have Gentiles who are friendly to us, who don't want to kill us, who don't want to stop us from having our freedom of religion. It's one thing. When we're dealing with Jews, it's a different story. We have to fight against the Jewish heretics, but a Gentile has a different religion. That's none of our business. They have to ask, learn about Shem Mitzvah Enoch. They maybe want to become Ger Tzedek. They want to convert to Judaism. We can explain to them what it entails and the halachas and everything, and bring them in if they want. But to go and if it's an open forum, we can also be open to share. But to just to insult someone and that's not together. It's a totally different story. To go on to insult the guest. I don't know what heter anyone has for that, but that's neither here nor there. But anyway, but this idea, this is a very strong idea, with the story of the Parah, of how they went out of their way. You can look up the first chapter of Hilchos Parah and the Rambam. You can look at it online. They have on Chabad.org. They have a whole Rambam in English. If you can't learn inside. And it's phenomenally deep idea that they went out of their way. I don't know. Just to me, I'm interested in history in general, but just this idea that they went out of their way to defile the Kohen, just to make the point that the Sadducees were wrong. It's a tremendous thing. Also, we don't have Sanhedrin today. Back then, the Sanhedrin, they made the laws. We don't have that today. So it's another issue. Anyway, all right. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'd like to hear comments on the bottom, what people have to say about this, because I find, and again, I don't mean it to be insulting or disrespectful to other movements, because I have a lot of friends in those other movements. But this is part of, I feel, a frank discussion, and personally, I would love to see, if people are not ready for orthopraxy to keep halacha, that at least they should adopt orthodoxy and believe in the 13 principles of our faith. And then beyond that, learn orthopraxy slowly but surely. And there are a lot of things that maybe are not the basic halacha, and you can maybe so whatever it is, people, they'll take some little minhag and they'll make a whole big thing out of it. That's also a point of this, and you have to learn when to be strict and when to be lenient. And so here we see also the power of being lenient and the importance of when to be lenient. This is it's to make a point, and it's and it's not just politics. It's also issues in faith. So this is something to think about in Parshas Parah. And if you have the time to look at the Yotzros in Parshas Parah, they're very beautiful, very deep, and really, if you're looking for some inspiration for the Shabbos, look over the Yotzros. Like I said, Art School has them in English in the back. The Yotzros for Parshas Parah, very beautiful, beautiful things. It's a very special Shabbos, Parshas Parah. So let's try to make the most out of it in our quest toward Pesach. And I think really that's a message that we can bring on the way into Pesach is, like I mentioned before, people putting an orange on the Seder plate and things like that. Maybe that's another example, something like this that's like what the Sadducees did, that we can see Bisman Hazeh. And, let's be proud to demonstrate the truth of Torah and not to water things down and not to change things that aren't meant to be changed, not to fix things that aren't broken. I think that's a big message. All right, please like, share, and subscribe, and thank you very much, and comment. Thank you.